I'm really happy to see all of you, and I loved seeing the cities and the years that you graduated. Since I've been teaching since I think 2012 or 13, I can't remember exactly. And I know Carrie's on the call here. She's from Seattle, so she went through a couple of years ago. So I just really love learning from all of you as well. So today what we're going to talk about is four things. Basically, what the heck just happened? And Brandon had a great lead in with your growth plans, because I'm guessing most of those growth plans might be somewhat irrelevant. So we're going to talk about those today. We're going to assess your own financial situation, just a few tips and tricks as to what you should be looking at, and then envision a new future for your business, because this really is an opportunity for you to redo that growth plan rapidly. And the template that we use in the Emerging Leaders class is the one thing that really allows you to do that versus, the very long slog of most strategic plans. And then we're going to just do a quick, develop that financial path from here to there. And we really can get through all of this in 15 minutes. So, and just, if you have questions, hang on to those and we'll get to those at the end. So, what the heck just happened? So I think the big thing that I've been talking to all my clients, and let's just say, everybody's in a state of complete unease. I'm doing resilience presentations for a lot of my clients, and nobody knows, right? We don't know what this is going to look like in the future, and there's just a lot of uncertainty. So I think the thing you can back on is that things aren't going to go back to the way they were. Everyone's business has been changed in some way that is not necessarily, what we had planned on. And so we just really have to remember that. Don't plan on it going back to the way that was in December, because it's not going to go back there. This was a once-in-a-lifetime event that nobody has a playbook for. So the good news is you get to create it for yourself. Now, some of you may have incorporated into your growth plans a disaster plan for your business or a succession plan for your business. If you did, you should probably pull that out and look at it. What did I think? What did I think I was going to do, if this happened, if a tornado or some sort of weather event happened to my business? Because this is a disaster. This is one of those events. Like, it's unlikely we're going to have another one in your lifetime or in our lifetimes. So we have to be, prepared for that. And your feelings of loss, grief are completely normal, and they're perfectly okay. If any of you are familiar with the change curves, there's 3 steps of that change curve. Stage 1 is the all the stages of grief: denial, sadness, all the things that go along with that, because this is it. Life as we knew it is completely changed. And so that anxiety that you're feeling, completely normal at this time. And you just go, okay, this is not the pleasant part. I need to get through it. So we have to get ready for the fact this isn't going to be fixed tomorrow or next month or the month after that, or even by the end of the year. The good news is we get to figure out what we want it to be and what we want to change. So this is where you definitely want to pull out your plan, or at least the financial portion of your plan, and look at what your break-even was. Does anybody remember what that was? Your break-even, it was that number in your financial plan that said, what's the level of revenue that I need just to pay for my expenses? How much sales do I need to cover where I'm not making any money, but I'm not losing any money? Well, if most of you are in cities that are completely locked down, you don't have any revenue coming in right now, right? So that means, what were your operating expenses? And those are the operating expenses that exist without you having any revenue. Like, whereas before you may not have been able to remember or understand kind of what that was, now we're all getting a very clear picture of what that should be. Who is demanding payment of you right now? Your rent, your utilities, some of your suppliers. Obviously I'm here in Seattle with Amazon. You gotta love them and hate them, right? So they did great things for the city of Seattle, and we all get our packages and we love that. but they're not a very nice company when it comes to it. A lot of the companies that are supplying to Amazon, Amazon sent out a notice and said, oh, due to the COVID, we're going to pay you minimum net 90, and it could be as long as net 80. So don't count on getting your money anytime soon. Now, if there's one company on the planet that's actually making money right now, it's probably Amazon. So that was just a crummy thing to do. So, but that's what the big companies are doing with their operating expenses, right? So you need to figure out what yours are. What are those expenses that I currently have today, now knowing that I got no revenue coming in, and what can I do with that? The next thing is, the thing that I preached, Carrie will know this, is you should have 3 months of operating expenses in reserves. That's what all small businesses, I don't care how small you are, that's the minimum that you need to have in order to weather something like this. 3 months. So if your operating expenses are a couple $100,000, you better have $600,000 in the bank or have access to it. And that means a credit line. Now, a lot of people's credit lines during this got cut immediately because they hadn't used them. Those are crummy banks. Those are the big banks that did that for a lot of the small businesses. Some of the smaller banks or your regional banks would not do that. Credit unions typically do not do that. So if you have access to that cash, that does count as, reserves. Preferably, you want to have it in cash. But I don't think anybody's going to go through this again and not have at least 3 months in operating expenses. Now, a lot of you have furloughed or laid off your employees, and so that's going to reduce those operating expenses. However, you still have things that you're going to have to pay for. What revenue, if any, do you have today? So there are lots of companies that are getting very creative with how they're keeping revenue in. And, there's some ways that you can do it. A lot of the restaurants are doing, the to-go thing, and they're actually doing really well with that. Some people are doing telework. I'm doing all my work via Zoom right now. And so, I have about half the work that I would normally have. And then, do you have access to lines of credit or any other forms of cash? This is not necessarily the time to take out loans, although we're going to talk about that in a couple of minutes here, but lines of credit are really important. The old thing I learned 20 some years ago, cash is king. Cash is cash is cash. And you need to have some of it, particularly when we go through times of crisis, because the rest of it doesn't necessarily matter. So, not getting yourself into a ton of debt is always a good thing, particularly when it comes to situations like now. So you have to look at your own financial situation, and you have to say, how much cash do I have, and does it, or access to it, exceed my liabilities? What are my current liabilities? Remember when we went through the whole financial module and you had to look at your balance sheet? You're going to look at your balance sheet and you're going to see what your current liabilities are. That's what you're going to find out. And if your current level of current cash, not long-term assets, but current assets, is greater than your liabilities, you're okay. But that's why you would look at those two numbers, specifically this situation that we're actually in right now. Another thing that you can do is, which employees can I furlough? And furlough means we lay them off so that they can have unemployment, but we intend to bring them back. We're going to bring them back when we can. And a lot of employees are happy with unemployment right now. Technically, depending upon what their wage is, most employees can get close to their salary because of the stimulus bill. It gives people up to $600 a week in addition to standard unemployment, which is, if their salary was somewhere between $60,000 and $70,000, they are going to get pretty close to that salary with the additional unemployment. And at this point, as I understand it, that lasts for 4 months. I've heard some people say 6 months, but anyway, the rules are changing daily as far as that goes. So furloughed means we're going to bring them back, and some of your employees can be furloughed versus keeping them on. and which vendors can be slow paid. So here you're going to take a page from the Amazon playbook and you're going to say, sorry, due to COVID, we're going to pay you, but it's going to be late. Because you don't want to be giving out that cash to companies like the big ones, like Verizon and some of the biggies who can withstand a little bit of it. You're still gonna owe the money. It's not like you're gonna get out of paying the money, but it doesn't mean you need to pay them as quickly as you may have done. Remember when we went through the financial section and we talked about all those key indicators, and one of those key indicators was days receivable and days payable. And the days payable, if you were good, probably it was somewhere in the range of 25 to 30 days. Push that sucker out. You can do 60 to 90 days. Nobody's going to cut you off at this point. You may have gotten notices from all of the utilities and a lot of your other companies saying they're going to be very forgiving during this time. They're going to let you pay late. Take advantage of that. You want to keep every dollar you have in your hot little hand to yourself so that you can maximize it with whatever that might be. And then you need to ask yourself, how long can I last without revenue? What does that look like? If I have no revenue coming in for the next 3 months, I've got this cash on hand, and here's my operating expenses. How long can I really last? You need to have the answer to that question moving forward because you don't want to be surprised by it. Remember that successful businesses are those that can predict the future better than others. And so having a handle on your finances right now is going to give you that secret weapon that a lot of the other small businesses won't have. So you guys understand that. You may not have understood everything in the financial module, but you've run your businesses this long, you're still in business, you know enough. And so, cash is king. How long can I last? Have those two answers. Now, that's all the bad news. The fun news is that, take that growth plan out and look at it, because whatever you thought of whenever you went through class, whether it was last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that doesn't exist anymore. It's like, forget about it. Pull it out and say, what was my big vision then and what is it now? Now is an opportunity to redo that big vision. And here's what you can do is recreate your business based on what you know now. And, there's a lot of things in our business that we try as small businesses. You can't compete on price. You're too small to do so. It just doesn't work. But you do have services. You do have things that are much better than the big companies. And so, knowing what I know now, how would I recreate the business? Take advantage of a new demand or opportunity. People are going to do business differently. I do not believe that people are going to go back into their offices exactly the way we were 3 months ago. Everybody is figuring out how to work at home. And you know what? In some cases, it's not so bad. Now, do I think everybody's going to work from home? Of course not. But one of my clients is the court of Seattle, the municipal court, 500 employees or so. Obviously, they have people in jail. They have courtrooms that they need to run, all this kind of stuff where you physically actually have to be there. I will tell you that 3/4 of that court is actually working from home. Nobody ever thought they could do it. Within 2 weeks, they completely readjusted and were doing it. And some of it's actually pretty efficient. I've worked from home for 20 years. Obviously, I go out and see clients, but I am much more efficient there. And, I'm used to it. But as people get used to it, that's going to be an opportunity. So what other opportunities are there? Can we serve people in their homes rather than at their businesses? I don't know. How can we work differently in your organization? Maybe you don't need to have such a big building anymore. Maybe you can have a smaller building. Maybe there's, half your workforce that can work from home. It's a huge savings to you as a business, by the way, when they work at home, because you don't have to provide a lot of the stuff that you would normally provide if they're in your business. So maybe there's a hybrid you can look at. And how can we be even better than before? I mean, let's just be realistic, and I don't mean to sound heartless here. But some of your employees probably were not people that you would have hired if you knew now if you knew when you hired them what you know about them now. So kind of sometimes it's an opportunity to do a little bit of upgrading with your staff. There will be a lot of people available for hire, and be realistic with your staff. Look at them. Okay, who wouldn't I have hired? Okay, they're gone. Sorry. And then rank them A through C, A, B, and C. Can your C players move up to B players? If they can't, they're gone. You just don't be a little bit harsh about this. You've got to be in business for yourself. This is you. This is your 401k and the rest of the employees that you need to take with you on this journey. So if they can become a B, great. They're probably on the list. Then look at your Bs. Can my Bs become As? Maybe. Great. Okay, so they're still on the list. Are they a B? They're never going to be an A, but they're a B player and I need them on the team because they provide a certain skill that I need. Okay, great. Not all your Bs are going to ever become As. You're never going to have a company full of As, and that's okay. But be realistic about evaluating your employees. And what do I need? And can people be more productive from home? Maybe I don't need quite as many people as I thought. Stop doing things that customers and employees didn't care about in the first place. I know as a business owner that I had certain things that I really wanted to do because I thought they were cool and no one else cared about. Okay, so we need to be realistic with ourselves. Is this just a thing I liked, or was it really of value to my customers, or to my employees? Maybe I don't need to do any of this anymore. No one cares. I mean, one of my companies was making 401k contributions monthly. They decided to postpone it and make an annual contribution at the end of the year based on what the year is going to look like. And employees were like, great, no problem. They didn't care. It's just like, okay, well, I guess I didn't need to do that. And who do I need for that new vision? That's that evaluation of your people. And what is my path to get from here to there? Remember when we're thinking about our big vision, here I am today, here's my big vision over here. You're sitting on the Grand Canyon and that gap is between you and where you want to go. You got to build that bridge. What does that bridge look like? What are the first few things that I need to do? Those become your strategic objectives or your big growth goals. So if you see no clear path, closing and restarting when you do is an okay scenario. I know that's really, really hard for some of us to contemplate. I've got 2 businesses that are doing that right now. It's like, I can't do this. I'm like, okay, stop the bleeding, close it off, figure out a completely new plan. We'll restart up when you've regrouped. That's okay. That is not failing. That is being realistic about the current scenario, the current situation and what it's doing to me. Then, how much money are you going to need to survive in the next 3, 6, or 12 months? This is that planning. How much cash? Realistically, what is that going to look like? If you project out those sales conservatively based on what you think might be coming in, what am I going to need? What is that revenue? And do you believe it's realistic based on everything you're hearing? And again, most of what we're hearing, these people don't know either. They're trying their best, but people just don't know. Figure out what that new break even is. Don't forget this number. You need to always know what your break even is. This is the minimum amount of sales that you need to cover your expenses. If your expenses are $100,000, how much do you need to sell? If you have a 50% markup, if your gross margin is 50%, that means you're going to need $200,000 in sales every month in order to bring in $100,000 to cover your expenses. So, it's just figure that number out. The calculations are in your manual. Hopefully you still have it and you haven't gotten rid of it. And then what are your new operating expenses? Really pare back, be brutal. What do I not need to have? Do all my salespeople need to have cars? No, done. Right? Do I really need to have this lease? No, done. Do I need to have this big copier? No, done. Turn it in. All that kind of stuff goes away. Right now, companies are saving tons on travel because obviously nobody can travel. So they're getting a little bit of money back. So look at everything, every single line item on your profit and loss. Do you really need it? And is it realistic? When do you anticipate being profitable again? When is that number going to come around for you? 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? Be realistic. By the way, when you go to the bank for some of these SBA programs, they're going to want to know that. Create your financial models, projections, budgets, all possible scenarios. This is where in an organization, you do budgeting, which is what we think, and then you do forecasting, which continues to change as you get more information in. So be conservative, get with your bookkeeper, your accountant, whoever it might be, and project those numbers out. And Excel is great for that. You can plug in different things. Now, lots of controversy and opportunity in the Paycheck Protection Program, the funding options that we have. The Paycheck Protection Program is probably the best one for small business right now. And the reason I say that is that it will help you keep your employees and other expenses. So the way that this works, and I just had one of my small businesses, an emerging leaders graduate from 2012, yesterday got acknowledgement that they are approved for $1.3 million. Now, the way that this works is that $1.3 million, they have to use 75% of it for their employees. The other 25% they can use for their expenses. If the number of employees that they put in on their application, which in their case was 75 people, they have to keep those 75 people during the 10 weeks that the time period that the loan is. The minute they get the money during those first 10 weeks, they have to keep those 75 people on board. Now, they don't have to keep those exact people. They can trade them out for other individuals, but they have to keep 75 jobs open. They have to, on their payroll, have 75 people at the end of that time. If they do, that entire $1.3 million, they do not have to pay back. This is manna from heaven. If you have not applied for the payroll protection program, you should. Go through your existing bank. If they're not taking applications, keep bugging them. Look at other banks that you may be able to do. They have probably already exceeded the amount of money that was in the stimulus bill, but there is going to probably be another one. You want to be first in line to get that second one if it's there. The ELDA or IA, whatever it is, was up to $10,000 in a bridge disaster loan. Supposedly everybody could get it, even if you were an independent contractor. As of yesterday, they put out new guidance that, oh, by the way, it was $1,000 per employee, up to $10,000. So for those of us that only have one employee, which is me, and I put in for it, I'm not getting the $10,000 like they originally said. So just know that it's $1,000 per employee on that one. The SBA debt relief. For any of you that have SBA loans, you can get a 6-month deferred payment on existing loans. You can apply for new loans under the disaster loan application. That one right before it is the precursor to that. So that is available. A little bit more complicated. You do have to go through the SBA to get that. The Paycheck Protection Program is through your bank. And then there's a bridge loan, which is up to $25,000 while you're waiting for the SBA debt relief. So those last two are related. There's a whole bunch of information on the SBA side about this as they read through all the legislation and figure everything out. And I guess there will be a few gotchas in there, but definitely apply for it. And the reason that it's so amazing is that, like my company that came through the program, I said to them, re-envision your business. You just got $1.3 million that you are not going to have to pay back. If somebody put that kind of money in your pocket, what would you do with your business? They're at $23 million now. They were at $2.5 million when they came through the program originally. And they still think small. They still think scrappy and bootstrapping. And I'm like, no. You have been considering upgrading your infrastructure for years. They have 6-month backlog in business. They are going to still be in business. They work outdoors. They're going to be one of the first ones back to work here in Seattle. So now is the time to upgrade that infrastructure with money that they may not have to pay back. Even if they had to let go 10 people off of that 75, the payback is prorated. So some of it would automatically transfer into loan at 1%. The rest, they still won't have to pay back. So it's a really, really amazing program for small business. The other considerations that you want to think about is consolidating with another business. There's going to be a lot of businesses that go out. Maybe there's good people. Maybe there's, revenue or customers that you can grab. One of the ideas that companies are using that I've talked with them is that next year, to save money, they're telling employees, we're going to keep you on, but starting in 2021, you're going to have to take 10 to 15 days of furlough days next year or next quarter or whenever it is, which means they have to take unpaid time off, right? You can do that. As an employer, you can do that. For my court that's doing that, they have 500 employees. It's going to save them $2.2 million in 2021. But that's one of the ways that they're going to be saving money. Lines of credit, get more of them. If you, right now, all the banks are swamped, but get as much as you can. As I preach, Carrie will remember this. Banks won't give you money when they need it. They give you money when you don't need it. So keep applying, and really avoid going into credit card debt. It's really hard to get out of that, and you don't want to have a mountain of credit card debt, which is generally at a lot of high interest rate. So those are not things that you would want to look at. Okay, so sorry I ran through that pretty quickly, but we'll go ahead and